Okay, so we are back to Monday Night Mishlei again with Mishlei 10:14. Chachamim yitzpenu da'as ufi evil mechita karova. Who wants to try translating?
I'll try.
Okay, go ahead.
The wise men
Yep.
store up knowledge or conceal them.
Ooh, you got both translations there. That's pretty good.
Yeah. There might be another one, but I'm not remembering. But ufi evil and the mouth of a fool, mechita krova, brings about destruction nearby.
Okay, yeah. So let's say I'm gonna actually leave a blank space here because it actually doesn't have a verb, right? So close destruction. Okay. So it is close destruction, brings close destruction, something close destruction. Okay. What did you associate to a particular word when you said for yitzpenu? Because that's not a very common word. If you're talking, then you're on mute.
In the Seder, we have tough.
I saw it somewhere in the Parsha.
Okay, interesting. Because I thought you were gonna say what Naomi just said, which is that in the Seder, safun is when people hide the afikomen. You know.
Yeah, that too. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but yeah, that was an easier one.
Yeah. Okay. So those are good translations. Let me just show you quickly the Metzudas Tion and Sadigon in the English. So Metzudas Tion says mechita is inyan shavira, kamosha mes mivtzarav mechita. Okay. So he says breaking. Okay. But I've seen it mean discussion also. Not discussion. Destruction. And then Sadigon says an interesting one. Okay. Chachamim ye'atzru hadea. So ye'atzru is so the wise treasure knowledge. Okay, or the wise store the knowledge as treasure. And I think we'll see when we look at the English here. Some of them said this. So Arscroll says the wise conceal knowledge. So they went with conceal. This is a little unclear here. Hold on. Conceal. Store up. Okay, Living Nach says the wise store up. Oh, sorry, I didn't finish the article. The wise conceal knowledge, but the mouth of the fools brings ruin near. Living Nach says the wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of the fool is impending ruin. I like impending ruin. That's Krova. And then Alder says wise men lay up knowledge. Lay up is not something we use in everyday conversation, but the dolt's mouth is impending disaster. Okay, dolt is a kind of old-fashioned word also. All right, so let's just leave it like this. Okay, so pretty straightforward translation here with clear alternatives. All right, so what do we got for questions here?
Hey, by the way, I didn't. This is Naomi. I didn't say anything previously.
Oh, you didn't. I mistook. Maybe was that Ayala?
Somebody else.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Credit where credit is due. Yeah. All right. Okay. So yeah. What are questions?
I
was just gonna say, okay. I was gonna say if we're translating the pasuk with conceal, I don't really see how that's attributed to chacham.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So if yitzpenu means conceal, why? Well, you mean like why would they do that? Is that when you say? Yeah. Why would?
Not in line with like how they would act, like either like share it or like I don't know. I feel like conceal also kind of has a little bit of a negative connotation.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So why would the wise conceal their knowledge? To the contrary, wouldn't they like publicize it or teach it or like talk about it, right? Yeah.
And that's
good.
What was in a previous pasuk in Mishlei where we didn't it say the exact opposite, that the wise are, they usually hang around a wise person because they'll be spouting wise things and then you'll get to benefit from that.
Yeah. Good point. And there are definitely more pesukim in Mishlei to talk about the wise sharing knowledge than the wise concealing knowledge. Okay, good. What else?
Yeah, well, to that point, just to maybe emphasize a little bit is
Yeah.
that was the first thing that I noticed and really like about this pasuk is that there is strong contrast between this one and the previous one.
Yeah.
Whereas always talking about it versus storing it or hiding it. I think there's a lot of questions in the comparison approach, but I know that's not your favorite.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of little things that if they're useful later that we could use.
Yeah. So when we get an idea for this, then and if there's time, remind me, and we'll do the comparison because I do like doing it afterwards. I just don't like doing it in order to get the idea. It reminds me of an observation, by the way, that Rabbi Zimmer from our yeshiva, the one year that he taught high school, he taught Mishlei, and I think they must have been doing this parak, and I think one of his students, like I forgot what grade it was. I think it was like a 9th grade boy or something like that. Said like every pasuk is just talking about fools and lips. And it is funny because like you can't deny that there have been a lot of pesukim in this parak about that. So again, whether or not there's an order to Mishlei, fact is we have had lots of pesukim about wise and foolish speech. Okay, what else?
This might be like an add-on to the first question, but
yeah.
But if we are assuming it's a good thing, concealing it is a good thing, then are some knowledge bad? I mean, are some things, you need to hide from people, or
okay? So let's do this. Let's that is implicit in the first question, but then let's also list as a separate question, what kind of knowledge do the chachamim conceal or store?
Yeah, that's a better way.
And maybe as part of that is, and this is kind of how we ended off last week a little bit, is how does that differentiate that knowledge? How does it differentiate from the wisdom?
Yeah. All right, good question. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that is okay. That is something that might lead to the fact that this is connected to the previous pasuk, because I mentioned last time, and I forgot if this was during shiur or after shiur, we were talking about the order that in Mishlei it's chachma and then bina / tavuna and then da'as. So the last pasuk talked about the navon who had bina and he was giving chachma. This is now talking about the chachamim and this is talking about das, and we didn't have das in the last pasuk. Okay, so yeah, so do we want to let's put this as a side question here? Okay, just in a broad sense, is what is there a connection? Connection between this pasuk and the previous one? And by the way, just not that this proves anything one way or the other. The Mefarshim who usually connect the pesukim did not connect this one with the last one. Which again, we are totally within our rights to do that. But it is interesting that they didn't, given the fact that it said chachma bina and das. Okay, what else?
Which Mefarsh usually connects? I'm just curious.
The Meiri will many times connect it. I'd say it's maybe like a third of the pesukim he'll connect to. Sometimes to another pasuk, sometimes like a cluster of like 3 pesukim, and then Rbeinu Yona loves to connect pesukim, but he does it in a very loose way, like he connects them in ways where Meiri connects them as if they're all one idea. Rbeinu Yona connects them as though like he just needs to give some idea about why Shlomo talked about this after the previous one, and then the third one is the Ralbag will sometimes connect them as one idea also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a different question.
Yeah.
What's the deal in the second half? What's with like the lack of verb?
Yeah. Okay. So
is it like yeah?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, is it saying that that is it like saying a causative relationship one way or another? Is it like describing is one thing like a description or modification of the other, like
yeah. Okay, so all impending destruction. So what is the relationship between the mouth of the fool and the impending destruction? And then another I'll add the like specifically well, I guess we're asking this on a linguistic level and on a conceptual level. What verb goes there? Knock knock. What verb goes there? Yeah. Okay.
What verb goes there? Who?
Yeah.
Another question is, last time we differentiated between the subject and the knowledge that they're interacting with.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because last time we said that there was somehow like a person, a navon, or is somehow interacting with wisdom, but now we're saying a wise person is interacting with knowledge, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think so. Let's ask the question that we asked. Same kind of question we asked last time. So, what is the definition of chacham here? What is the definition of da'as here? And then, what is the definition of? What is the relationship between? What is this saying about the relationship? What is this saying about the relationship between chachamim and their knowledge? Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
What's the deal with krova? Because weird.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, I said yeah because I agree with the question, but I don't know if what I think is the same as what you think.
Okay, so I think on one level, wouldn't it kind of imply, first of all, that it would be like on the fool? And if not, then I don't know. I just feel like close is a weird word to be using for this. Like, why specifically that? What are the implications of it? Who is it affecting?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Okay.
specific, but it also doesn't explain.
What does krova, close or impending, mean here? And then how does it modify destruction? Which obviously we have to ask, what is the destruction?
Also, like, are we just assuming that it's on the fool only?
Oh, so that's actually another question, right? What is the destruction here? And I'm going to ask this as part of the same question because I feel like the answers have to be together. Who is being destroyed? All right. In other words, the most direct possibility is who?
The fool.
The fool. Another possibility, the one you just mentioned, is it the fool? Is it the fool and others? And then what would the third possibility be?
Is there a third possibility?
Mm-hmm.
It
Not
could be
God.
the other people.
Other.
Yeah, other people, right. Only others, right? Meaning maybe it means he will just be destroying others or bringing harm to others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And also, like, what's the contrast between the first half and the second half?
Yes. Okay, good. So that to me is the like, other than talking about mouth, I mean, even it's funny because the first half doesn't even say mouth. I guess it implies that they're not saying the knowledge or something like that. But like, it's just, you would not even associate these two pesukim as being together, like this is like the I sometimes feel like, I forgot if I gave this analogy last time, remember when we had a couple pesukim where the halves were the same. So I sometimes picture, like, did Shalom Melech have like a jackpot like thing where like there were just like different phrases on each side of the wheel and like two wheels that are going and then they line up and then like you get a Mishlei pasuk, so this sounds like ones that lined up and didn't actually like have anything to do with each other. So what is the relationship between the two halves of the pasuk? Oh, we didn't ask what an avil is. Let's put that in our definition section. What is an avil? Right, and this is this we've definitely had before, but again, we got to ask it every time. Context. Yep. What else? Is there anything else?
Maybe what kind of destruction are we referring to?
Yeah,
I'm just like squeezing out questions at this point.
Yeah, we had that. What is the destruction?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, one thing we should do also is we should ask this question based on each of the meanings. So if Yitzpnu means conceal, why would the wise conceal their knowledge? If it means treasure, or let's say store up, like duh, right? What does that mean? Obviously, like what would you expect them to do with their knowledge? Like throw it away, you know? And then if it means treasure, so like in what sense? In contrast to what? Why? Yeah. Okay. I think this is pretty good for now. All right.
I had one more question. I
Sure.
noticed that in this pasuk it says chachamim when it usually is
Yes.
referring to singular.
Yeah.
Is it relevant? Is it
Okay.
relevant?
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's
So actually, that reminds me of two weird nuances here. One is, I think in previous shiurim I've mentioned that it will usually have the chacham in the singular and the rashaim in the plural, or the fools in the plural. So, why? Oopsies. Why is chachamim plural and evil singular? Okay, and again, obviously this is a minor question, but one that if we can answer, it'd be great. And then another one, I feel like someone made this observation last time, or we talked about this observation. It says the mouth of the fool, as opposed to
The lips.
the lips, right? So a couple of pesukim so far, we've seen lips of the fool. Okay, why mouth of the avil as opposed to lips? And I'm gonna do this just to make sure that we're methodologically sound here. Is these are minor questions and these are major questions because yeah.
The audience also.
Yeah.
By the way, is it a fair approach to start answering the questions with like small isolated thoughts rather than coming up with a full?
Oh, it's totally fine to do that, and it's always like a sometimes it's a difference in styles of thinking. Sometimes it's just like you have a strong intuition, but like, you know, you can argue that if you make one intuitive leap and try to explain the whole pasuk, then it's a more careless way of thinking, you know, because you're just like, you know, you're not generalizing, you're giving you're making one huge move, and you might argue that it's a more conservative approach to like build it from the bottom up, you know. So but I say go with it, whatever way your mind is going. Yeah, okay, good. So let's do what we have been in the habit of doing and take a minute to think. Is it? Yeah, sorry, this is trying to get everything on screen at once. So sorry if it's a little small. Okay, so let's take a minute to think, and then we'll hear ideas, but we're gonna do an experiment this time. Okay, so here is the experiment. Okay, so Ariel brought up a fair point, which is that when we get to this part of the shiur, then oftentimes someone will give an idea and we'll end up just spending either 20 minutes or 30 minutes or the entire shiur on that one idea. And there are lots of other people who have approaches that they want to say, you know? So like, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but I do sympathize with the people who just like are not quick enough on the trigger to like unmute, you know? So let's try this. Let's get out onto the table ideas and approaches either to the entire thing or specifics. And I will try as hard as I can to not respond. and then we'll it might be possible. We'll see. That's why I call it an experiment, and then we'll decide what approach we want to work on here. Okay, so let's hear who has what to say, and I'll keep score here on the I'll type out notes. Yeah,
I have
go
something.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Isaac.
Yeah.
I'm not going to write word for word what you say. I'm just going to listen and then like
Yeah.
put it down. On the
Sorry, can you go back up to the pasuk?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go for all of it.
Okay. All in.
So I think the pasuk is talking about concealing knowledge that is true but not good for a person to know. Because I think there are some times when there is like a piece of knowledge that people know, let's say like chachamim can know or figure out and realize that, but also realize that people are going to misunderstand it or misapply it, and so it's better for people to not know it.
Yeah.
And so you can have a lot of people who know this piece of information who but they're being chachamim in terms of it and concealing their their knowledge. But a fool will share that knowledge and bring about like destruction. And I'm speculating that the reason that there's no verb is that like he's not even like he's not seeing the causative relationship between him sharing information and the destruction happening. So he's just like, this is the facts. He's just talking about he's talking about what's true, and he doesn't see that as like him doing an action.
Right. It's just like mouth, destruction. Huh. That's where did that happen? You know, it's you know, like action movie, like stuff just blowing up. Yeah. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is just to keep track of these, I'm going to try one sentence summaries of the approach that you're taking. So according to you, the pasuk is about subject of the pasuk equals wisely concealing knowledge that would be harmful if misunderstood versus foolishly spouting knowledge that can be destructive and not even realizing the cause and effect relationship. Is that a fair one sentence?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
can I ask a question before we continue?
No.
Oh my
Wait, no. So
Yeah.
if it's a question on the pasuk, yes. If it's a question on Isaac's interpretation, then no.
No, it's on the pasuk.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so my question was, I feel like I've asked this in other pesukim, but on the first half, I just think it's interesting. I don't know if it's a question or it's both. The first half, I think it's interesting that there's no actual like act, meaning there's an action, but there's no really like consequence that we see. But I feel like with the second half, it's very much consequence based. Like I feel like it's not concentrating on that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I guess I'll answer as I've answered before when you've asked it, which is good to review. Is that this is one where you have to like fill in the unstated parts of the pasuk. Okay. So let's say, for example, we see. Let me do it like this: the wise conceal knowledge, but the mouth of the fool. I'm just gonna say brings destruction. Okay. For the time being. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to plug in each half into the other one. So the wise conceal knowledge and avoid bringing about destruction, but the mouth of the fool, which doesn't conceal knowledge, brings destruction. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, the reason why he doesn't write it out like that is it's a proverb. Like it's supposed to be short, and like if you could put it together that way. So like that's the shadow reading of the pesukim. A word I just made up right now. You know. Okay, good. All right. Anyone else have another approach to the pasuk?
Not a flushed out approach, just
That's fine.
some breadcrumbs or something.
Okay.
So a couple of points that I had some thoughts on is one is why the mouth is supposed to the lips,
Yeah.
and why the plural and singular. And then
Okay.
I have like a light leaning or not leaning, a light impression of the pasuk that I have more problems with than confidence in. So I'll
Okay,
just share
that
those
is also
points.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think
Now, and just sorry, before you start saying, just so I can mentally prepare myself, are the two observations on the first 2 points related to the other approach, or they're right now not related?
I think that they're compatible, which is why they
Okay.
kind of clicked, but I don't
Yeah.
know that they're
Okay.
inherent supports.
Okay.
So I think that the mouth as opposed to the lips has to do with the amount of thinking that goes into it. So I think lips is implying that there was zero thought. It's just instant, like, zero filter, instant, whatever occurs is out. But I feel like the mouth implies that there's a little more thought, so that this is a fool who thought he wasn't a fool, but really is a fool.
Right.
And
Oh, you muted yourself.
oh, sorry. The singular versus plural, I think refers to it's I would just inverse the explanation I think you've given in the past for why chachamim are normally singular and fools are normally plural, is like to accomplish something, you just need one wise person, and even many fools together can't do it. I feel like that might have been a thought you shared, maybe not, but I thought it was. So I feel like we can just reverse it here, meaning like even many wise people, and they still won't make this flaw,
Okay.
and even just one fool is enough to, go about bringing destruction.
Yeah, there's a there's a pasuk in Koheles that it did remind me of that. Is hold on a second. Is dead flies putrefy the perfumer's oil, and one sinner can cause the loss of a lot of good. Like, and the idea, and this is in Koheles, so this is Shlomo HaMelech. This is technically a proverb, right? But it's but meaning, like, that's the idea, is like if you had a bottle of perfume and you saw like a fly in it, like, technically speaking, it doesn't actually ruin the whole thing, but it ruins the whole thing, and one fool can like ruin the whole thing.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. So then the light impression I had, which I'm going to tell you my problems with in a second, is the feeling this gives to me at like first glance is the American saying of walk quietly and carry a big stick.
Yeah.
So the wise man doesn't reveal all his cards, and he just, is quiet and patient, and and then that hopefully leads to success. And the fool who thinks that he needs to always get ahead and immediately play his best shot is going to bring about destruction. So that's kind of like the feeling I get when I read this.
Yeah.
I have some serious issues with it though, because of the words he's using. He's using the word knowledge, which is supposed to be, like the highest level of ideas, so we're not talking about information like, oh, I actually know, some interesting facts that other people don't know, and it's not even how to apply them. We're at a level of knowledge that like supersedes that. And what also compounds my confusion is that we're now talking about, he's not calling it I don't know what the word for this person would be, but he's not calling it a knowledgeable person. He's calling them a wise person, which implies that a wise person, like the baseline thinking was a wise person deals with wisdom.
Yeah.
So now we're also dealing with a wise person who deals with knowledge that's like 2 levels above his pay grade.
Okay.
So this is the parts that confuse me,
it's
and
so
don't
hard
click.
for me to not respond, but okay. Let me just jot down what you said so far. So you made 3 points, which is that lips imply superficial, thoughtless speech, whereas mouth implies like intentional, like you meant it, speech. Okay, I know that's not exactly your words, but this is again just to jog our memory here. 2 is that the plural chachamim indicates that they are all unified in this, whereas a fool, even one fool, can bring about this destruction. And then 3 is that the light idea was
Walk quietly and carry a big stick.
yeah, right. Is that the wise are judicious in expressing their knowledge, whereas the fool plays all his cards immediately. And then problems are number 1, knowledge, das, implies a high level, and chachamim implies the basic level, right? Okay. All right. Anyone else have an approach?
I was thinking of contrasting the mouth with the third definition, well, with the definition that we had store up, because that's sort of like something that I don't know, it has to do with making provisions or feeding yourself. But I didn't have any. That was just an approach. I didn't have any other thoughts.
Okay. So
Can I-
so are you? Let me just make sure I understand you correctly, Naomi. So are you saying because of the associations between mouth and food, then storing up is then that's yeah, okay.
It has
Yeah.
to be like,
Yeah, I actually,
Looking for
I translated Sadigon as treasure when he said otsar, but otsar can also mean like a grain silo, like storing up food. So that's a fair point also. Yeah, give me 1 second, Mario.
Yeah.
Perhaps mouth indicates store up because of its food provisions association. Association. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Start times.
right.
Yeah.
Right. I think Zach suggested. Well, you just asked them. But often enough, even chachamim fall prey to this because, sometimes, because the truth is, like, it's really obvious. It should be kind of obvious what you should be able to say to someone and when you shouldn't be able to say it, but sometimes we get caught up in the moment and we kind of just let loose.
All right. So, I think you're actually raising a question that I don't want to list here because it really is a question on Isaac's approach, which is why are chachamim in need of this advice? And I agree with you, like, experientially, that it's easy to get caught up in the moment, but I feel like we would be better served if we're going to take Isaac's approach, we would be better served if we understood more clearly what this mistake is so that we can avoid it.
I'm actually going to disagree with Ariel about that.
Okay,
I think.
let me just ask. Before we go on, have we transitioned to the point where we're now?
No, I haven't. I
You have an idea? Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure to hear everyone out. Yeah, Rivki.
Oh,
Okay.
I just have a short thing about what Ariel said.
All right, no.
Okay.
No, Rivki. I'm saying yes to you,
okay.
not Isaac.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very half baked, but it's just really bothering me that it uses close. I don't know why. So I was thinking, why would it say that? And I feel like it's trying to tell us about a specific type of avil. And I feel like there's different types. Like obviously there could be the person that, his mouth does cause destruction, but I think the fact that it specifically says close is trying to tell us that, like, not only is it bringing destruction upon, I'm assuming it is on him, and I think it also could be other people, but it's like kind of almost, I don't know, do you think that we can take it as immediate, or is that not?
Immediate that's a fair, that's what karov usually means,
Yeah. So I'm thinking that it's not just like, oh, like in the future, like let's say fraud, like you keep getting involved in sketchy business, like you'll eventually have a negative reputation. This is kind of like right away.
Yeah.
And I think, I didn't really think that much about the chacham because I think it's more of like a basic idea, and I'm trying to think what's the chiddush. I don't know, maybe trying to like come up with an idea that would go to like the opposite side of bringing immediate destruction.
Yeah. And okay, I can't say anything. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I hear. All right. Anyone have another approach before we take up one of these to analyze?
Well, I don't know if this is an approach, but more just addressing the question of what kind of knowledge should remain hidden.
Yeah.
So we know that like there's certain types of knowledge that you're only supposed to learn when you're ready for it, like Kabbalah. You have to reach a certain age of experience and wisdom before you're able to start learning certain areas. So I was just wondering if this is referring to that, because Kabbalah is sometimes called the hidden knowledge.
Yeah. So the Meiri is going to say in his metaphorical approach that it is talking about those the secrets of Torah. And if we have time, we could look at that. But I think it might even fit into Isaac's. I think Isaac, not to speak for you, but based on my understanding of what you're saying, like that would fit into your idea, right?
I didn't quite catch it.
Let's say it's an area that people are not ready to learn before they reach a certain level. Yeah.
So on a scale from 1 to 10, how hard was this, Rough Ice?
Well, let's wait to see how it plays out. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, all I know is I have white hair now. Yeah. Okay. So let's. I think because there's debate being held back for Isaac's approach, and I think Isaac's approach is the most like intuitive read, smoothest read in that sense. Let's start with Isaac's. Okay. So yeah. So the idea is that the chachamim. So the subject of the pasuk then would be that the chachamim will, before they volunteer the knowledge, they'll think about the impact that the knowledge is going to have on the audience, and whether or not it could be misunderstood, and whether or not there'd be harm from that misunderstanding. Because it's not just the fact that they're worried about being misunderstood. Like, like you can say lots of stuff and people misunderstand, and there's no harm. But they're worried about, is that misunderstanding going to lead to a harm? And the Avil doesn't do that, and just indiscriminately like says whatever he knows or whatever he's thinking, and that can bring about immediate destruction, like Rivki was saying, because like one misunderstanding that leads to like a false decision or like a false impression or like a grudge or like social consequences, like it could be really, really bad. So I think that's a good idea. Now the question is, why do chachamim make this mistake? That's like the question that Arya was giving answers to.
Well, so should I finish my answer to that, or Isaac wants to?
Why don't you finish? I guess if you have more to say, you can finish your answer to it.
Yeah, I think that we simply just, we are humans, even chachamim are humans, and I think that the challenge is controlling ourselves, and even chachamim fall prey to this. Chachamim, I think over here just means that you are an individual who has information or has, who may have some more superior knowledge than the individual who you're encountering with. Obviously the chacham in that situation would be able to control himself or withhold that information or that argument or debate or whatever it is. But now the question is, why do chacham need this? It's really to show us that it's almost like we need that second half of the pasuk to show us the danger in the, and I think it's the relationship that can be ruined or destroyed from those conversations. Like, I've had 3 of my family members, one of them who's a Rav, who called me a kofar for arguing with them. So like, yeah. So I'm saying like, it's just like, it could be very problematic.
Yeah. You want to say the Rav's name so that I can have more practice editing? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So one thing that you said at the end that I also that I hadn't noticed before is it is interesting that like a chacham can be the fool in this case, meaning according to this interpretation, like, I mean, maybe this is different. Maybe this is a difference between Ariel and Isaac, but like, Isaac, you would agree, I think, that chachamim are also prone to this, right? And in fact, there's a mission in Pirkei Avos that says, chachamim, be careful with your words, and like, and it goes into a metaphor about like what happens if people misunderstand them,
Yeah.
So like, it is an interesting thing where like you can be a chacham, but then you can talk like a fool by making this mistake. And in fact, there's another pasuk that says, "Gam evil machrish chacham yichashev," which I don't know if that has any relation to this. Someone quoted it that even an evil who silences himself could be considered like a chacham. Like an evil can act the part of the chacham by not revealing something if he catches himself doing this. But I really want to go into why does the chacham make this mistake? And I realize there could be many reasons. So can we get down to like a core like mistake that all these things stem from?
Can I ask a question about this question?
Yeah.
So in general, when Mishlei says the chacham does such and such, so are we asking like a generic question, like why does the chacham need this advice? And that question would apply anywhere, or is it something special about this pasuk?
I'd say it applies everywhere. Like, for example, anytime the pasuk points out I'm going to say this in a dumb way. Anytime the pasuk says that a fool does something foolish, you can ask, well, what would lead him to do that? And you could say his foolishness or his emotions, but that's not going to get you any knowledge. And it's also not going to help you to guard against it, So like, yeah, it's true that sometimes we get caught up in the moment. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, like I just wasn't thinking, but like if there's the more specific we can be to like beware of the trap, then the better chances we'll have of avoiding it.
Sorry, Zach, you go. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Maybe it has to do with, and maybe this is a tweak I can just add to Isaac's translation, because he, I think, was saying that the fool just like says the information without thinking about it, but I don't see why we can't use his translation to also say that the fool thinks about it and then decides to say it anyway.
Yeah.
And right.
Yeah. Especially given your interpretation of mouth, that it's not the lips of the fool saying it. This is the mouth of the fool saying it. So like he thinks it's proper to say here.
Right.
Which makes his mistake even worse. The fact that he doesn't realize it's bringing down destruction. Yeah.
Right. And so maybe what is the challenge here for a person to choose between being a fool and being a wise person is to understand the impact knowledge has on people. And often people can be self-absorbed into, right and wrong or how it impacts me. But like the next level, let's say the meta thought is, okay, now that I have an opinion about something, how is this opinion, how is this information going to affect the people who I'm going to share this with?
Yeah.
And that's the course that this person is navigating and choosing between the fool and the wise person.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'm going to say the same thing in a slightly different way. And I'm going to give a slightly different reason for it. So the same thing in a different way is, and I've got a couple of my AP English students in here. So there's something that we call the rhetorical triangle, okay, which is the relationship between the speaker, the audience, and the message or the text, or in this case, like the content. And I think the what Zach is saying is that it's very easy for the speaker to just get caught up in the speaker and the text and then not think about the audience. But different audiences require different, you have to change your message or the way you deliver it, based on the audience. Okay. So like that's the mistake in action. And I think the cause of the mistake, and this is something that I think is embedded in what you're saying, but I think I'm taking one more step, is I think it's a big problem for people in general, but I think especially chachamim, to not put themselves into the shoes of the other person. Like, I'm a chacham and I understand this level on this idea on this level, and of course, when I say it, the other person is going to receive it in exactly the same way, because how could they not? It's so obvious, or it's so clear, or like, so that mistake can be made on two levels, that you can assume that the other person is on the same intellectual place as you are, or on the same level of maturity or same emotional place. And both of those could be dead wrong, And I'm saying this as a high school teacher, having made this mistake hundreds of times, of like failing to accurately put myself in the shoes of a ninth grader who is coming from a completely different religious background, or like has a certain bias, or BIAS, not Bayesian test, atop, but or that too, or just is missing a key concept, and it's just easy. You just project your own level of understanding, your own mentality onto the other person, and then you're careless with it, So like that's, I think, why chachamim. So chachamim, the good chachamim in the pasuk are aware of this, and they tailor their message to the audience, or they will withhold aspects that would be harmful to the audience if they had them. And then the fool like knows what he's saying, and like either doesn't think about his audience, or completely misjudges the audience, based on his own personal again, it could be his own emotions, like, oh, this guy really wants to hear what I'm going to say, or it could be like I'm such a good explainer that I'll explain it in a way where he won't make a mistake. There could be many mistakes that the fool makes as well. So yeah.
Can I offer a different answer to your question?
To the question about why a person would make this mistake?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that it could be a part of human nature. I think the cause of us getting into any debate or argument or anything is because we think we are right, but at the same time, because we're right, we want to help them understand, that maybe this is the right knowledge and information that they should have. It's almost like it's a little twisted, but we're trying to help them understand what's right. But in reality, it's kind of like a little egotistical, because I think I'm right. I have to, it's kind of fulfilling a certain emotional thing I have, because I want to share with him the true knowledge, but who's to say that's actually the appropriate knowledge he needs?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Is that there is well, how can I put it? I sense what you're getting at. Meaning, like, there's a
self-righteousness.
I wouldn't. Maybe that's what you're saying. That's not how I was thinking of it, though. I was thinking about inherent in the act itself. Someone who believes he possesses the truth.
Yes, exactly.
Is like in a position where like
he has to teach them the truth. Like,
yeah, right.
It's his obligation to teach them.
Yeah, meaning like I believe I have the truth, and I believe you don't have it, and therefore like I have this responsibility to set you right. Maybe in some cases it expresses self-righteousness, but it's just like it's like an inherent imbalance in the way that each party is coming to the discussion.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Think of missionaries, I guess.
Right. I mean, this happens to be. I'm just. What are you gonna say, Rivki? I know what you're gonna say.
No, you can go first. I'll go after.
No, was this another AP English point though? Is that what you're gonna say?
No, but no, it's fine.
Because I was gonna say we just did this in class today. Wait, did I see Ayala here? Yeah. Ayala's here.
I'm here.
Yeah. So does it remind you of anything that we did today? Not to put you on the spot. Bringing your memory of the other type of argumentation that we learned about today.
Yeah, Rogerian
argument, right? So there's two styles of argumentation. There's what's often called traditional, or some people call it Aristotelian, but I don't think people say that. Traditional arguments where you're trying to prove the other person wrong, and then there's Rogerian argument, which is developed by Carl Rogers, who was a psychologist, who said that you basically have a better chance of arriving at the truth if, instead of trying to disprove the other side, you seek to understand the other side and show the limitations, in what context your position is correct and makes sense, and what the limitations of that are, and then in what context the other person's position is correct and the limitations of that. And so it's not as aggressive or domineering in the approach. And I think that chachamim will naturally be drawn towards doing that because they realize how effective it is. And like I gave an example in class today. Let's see if anyone else gets this other than Ayala. Which famous figure among Chazal was famous for stating his opponent's position before he stated his own?
Was it Unclus?
Not that I know of. And I haven't seen this inside in a very long time. So
I know that Avraham Avinu did it.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that one either.
Didn't he show them that your idols can't protect you?
That's the opposite of what I'm saying. That's trying to disprove them. I'm saying showing the like acknowledging the other person's side in a way that validates it is Hillel, I think. Right, I heard that this is one of the differences between Hillel and Shammai, and one of the things that the signs of Hillel's humility is he would always like state his opinion, his opponent's opinion first, you know. And like we call this, again, this is another thing in English, is you've heard of the straw man, you know, fallacy, or the straw man approach, where you like make a caricature of your opponent's position and then break down the caricature. So the opposite of that is steel man. Like you build up the best case for your opponent, and then if both parties are doing that, then you end up like in a situation where both of you gain maximum truth without like the threat of breaking other people down. But I feel like I've taken this far afield. Can we look at another interpretation really quickly? Just because I didn't realize how the time got away from me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, are we looking at Zach's interpretation?
Yeah.
Well, I want to do two things. I want to really quickly bail out Zach and show that that this is really not as bad as his two problems are not as bad as he thought. First of all, remember what we said last time, that all of the knowledge terms in Mishlei are used in a technical sense and in a generic sense. So you're not forced to say that Das is the highest level of knowledge. You can say that Das is just generic knowledge, you know. And same thing with chachamim. You can say chachamim is like level 1 of like knowledge, where you're just reliant on other people. But chachamim could just be people who are involved in knowledge in general, you know.
But,
so
I mean, isn't that like super dissatisfying to say that?
No, it's not, because it's no more dissatisfying than when you realize that in English we use the terms. Look, if you're the Malvin, you're gonna say it's dissatisfying because the Malvin will say that the same terms is used in the same way all the time. But in Hebrew, in any language, we have different ways we use these terms. Like, you know, like we say, for example, the word smart can mean IQ, or you could be street smarts. Like, and we use the same word, like, you know, smart, or like, you know, it's not. And I'm saying, like, whether or not you're dissatisfied, the majority of like the Hebrew commentators who care about or who have knowledge of the Hebrew language acknowledge that there is such a thing as synonyms in Hebrew and as words that are used in different ways. Like the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim says the word chachma can mean, I think it can mean, what is it? Knowledge. It can mean moral perfection. It can mean cunning. And I forgot one other thing, you know? So it's like, I'm not dissatisfied by that. If you want to be, you can be, but
I haven't decided yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can think about that. I want to do two interpretations here. Okay.
Wait, can I add one small point to what we were saying about why a chacham would make the mistake?
Yeah.
I think there's also a phenomenon where the chacham will say this piece of knowledge is truth, and then they'll say like they'll think about whether they should share it in terms of its truth value as opposed to it in the realm of speech.
Yes.
It's like
I think
a different point of the rhetorical triangle. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Meaning they're not viewing it as a triangle. It's just me and the idea. There's me and the idea, you know, not me and the idea and the speaker, and the relationship between me and the speaker, and the relationship between the speaker and the idea, and the relationship between me and the idea. Yeah. That's good. So I want to really quickly share the approach that Chavrusa and I came up with, if I can remember it now. And I think when Zach was saying his idea, it did remind me of it for this part here. Oh, no. It's not. It didn't remind me of it. Well, we'll see. Okay, let me try saying it, and then we'll see what happens. So we went with the I forgot why we went with the definition of treasure. Okay, and what we said was that that the subject of this pasuk is how people's relationship to knowledge in general will manifest itself in their speaking. Okay, and what I mean by that is like this: is chachamim have a relationship with knowledge where they realize that all knowledge is valuable. Okay, and what they'll do is they will, when they learn knowledge, they will store it away, and they'll listen to it and make sure they get it clear, and then they'll store it away and try to remember it because they know that it is valuable. And even if they don't see an application for it now, or they don't see like a use for it now, then they'll still store it because they know that it is valuable. Okay, the fool is someone who relates to knowledge in a completely pragmatic way, and he does it in two bad ways. Number one is he will not bother to store up knowledge that he does not view as useful in the moment. So this is like the kid who says, why do I need to learn this? Is this on the test? Or like the person who's like learning a certain like skill or craft, and like the teacher is teaching him like all of the stuff that is important, and the kid's like, I forget about that. Like can I use it? No. It's the single-minded like is it usable to me or not? So what's going to happen is, as a result of that attitude towards knowledge, then the Avil is going to make two mistakes. One is a situation will come up where he will need knowledge that he did not bother to remember or have, because he was only concerned with what he needs right now, and that will lead to destruction. And secondly, he will attempt to take whatever he does know and cram it into whatever situation he finds himself in. Like, I think we all know, like, we've all seen this before, where like there is a person who is in a class or in a shiur, and like they happen to like know one fact or have heard one idea, and they just like hammer it in as if like it has to be that this fact is relevant to the topic because it's the fact that I know, and so like it's the opposite of the way that the chachamim relate to it. So in other words, chachamim, I wrote a summary for myself. I got to consult my summary here. Just 1 second. It was a lot more articulate when I prepared it. At least I hope I wrote a summary. Hold on. I'm trying to be better about that this semester. We're on 1014, right? 1014.
Do you keep all those notes that we do in?
I have not done it consistently. I have meant to try. Oh no, I didn't write it down. Oh, I know what happened. Yeah, I'll blame it on the snow. Yeah. No, I was gonna write it down, and I decided to dig out my car instead. And I told myself this will give me time to review it while I'm walking there and back. And I reviewed it, but I didn't write it down. So that's what I get for that. But anyway, so this is the idea we came up with, and then after we came up with the idea, we read Rbeinu and Yona, and we weren't sure where our idea began in Rbeinu and Yona, and our idea ended in Rbeinu and Yona began. So let me read it to you, and then maybe a combination of both of them will like trigger something here. So Rbeinu and Yona says, and he, Zach, rest assured, takes the terms in. Oh no, he doesn't. Never mind. He takes chacham in the technical sense, but da'as he takes as the knowledge that they received, not as like the highest levels of knowledge. Okay, and I think the reason why he does that, by the way, is because otherwise you'd say chachamim yitzpenu chachma, which just sounds like redundant, So he wants to change it up. So let's see. Rbeinu Yona says, "Chachamim him hamakshivim al divrei Lomdeha." So the chachamim are the ones who listen carefully to the words of their teachers. So that's that was the same definition as we had last pasuk, that they received knowledge from their teachers. Oh, and he says, "Alpha pisha enam mechadshim," even though they don't come up with chidushim, with new ideas b'chachma, mitzvunasam, from their intelligence. So last pasuk we had the navon, who is an innovator and a creative thinker and is coming up with new ideas, and the chachamim don't do that, but they listen very carefully to the ideas that they get from their teachers. So what do? Sofnim hadas shalomdim min chachamim. They guard or store away the knowledge that they get from the chachamim. The shomrim oso, and they preserve it or they protect it, levilti yishkachuhu, so as to not forget it. umargishim bamesh enam yodim, and they sense what they don't know, meaning they know what they don't know. Umacharishim, and they are silent in the areas that they don't know. Shnemar, he's the one who quoted the pasuk. Gam evil macharish chacham yichashev. Even a fool who silences himself will be considered a chacham. So in other words, chachamim are very, very careful to preserve what they hear. And as a result of that, they have a very, very clear knowledge of what they do know and what they don't know. And they won't speak in areas where they don't know anything. Okay.
Which is very like that's very in line with the famous Socrates saying.
Yes, the Socrates is I may not have any knowledge, but I know that I don't know, whereas that guy doesn't know that he doesn't know. Yeah. Ufi Evil, shout out to the members of our Plato group from the summer that we did that. Okay. All right. Ufi Evil Machita Krova. Ho'il, Evil Yilavet Bisvasav. So the Evil will weary himself out with his lips. That's a borrowing a pasuk from before, 2 pesukim. V'yomar kol al rucha. He'll say whatever comes to his mind. Gam al ki yagia nezek bedavar berchilus umalshinus v'hotzaas diba v'etza ra'ah. Even if this will entail destruction and gossip and slander, and tattletaling and slander and bad advice. Okay, so he's just gonna no restraints. Alkain piv yihia mechita krova. Therefore, his mouth is a close destruction, labrios, for other people. The Omer, and it says b'mashal. I guess he's quoting some other mashal, not from Mishlei. Chevers hashot sakana. That's a great parable. Friendship with a fool is dangerous. Is hazardous. Hine sefer midas hanavon v'hachacham v'havil b'devarim. So he does connect this to the previous pasuk. He's saying, therefore, Shlomo has told the traits of a navon and a chacham and a nevil. Okay, so he's saying it's really about all three of them. So we had in the previous pasuk, the navon always has chachma on his lips, and that was talking about his relationship to chachma. And then the chacham relates to chachma. He can't innovate it, but he can preserve it and therefore maintain a clear demarcation of what he knows and doesn't know. And the fact that he refrains from saying what he doesn't know, that's the you could almost read it as a double meaning here. Storing knowledge means that he preserves what he hears, and concealing knowledge, no, you actually can't say that. You can't say it's concealing knowledge of not speaking in areas that he doesn't know. But at the very least, the chacham does not do what the avil does. The avil mouths off whatever it is that occurs to his mind and has no clear notion of what he knows and doesn't know, and has no self-censoring, and therefore it brings destruction.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah, go ahead. I also have a question on it.
Okay, yeah. My question is, does he know that what he says will cause damage, or he just doesn't know?
I think he doesn't know. I think he's
right.
Not
okay, good. All right, good.
Yeah.
Because if he does know, then he's like a Russia.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. In fact, there's a separate category in Mishlei, which we haven't done a pasuk on, called a lates, which is usually translated as a mocker or a scoffer or a scorner. So that's a person who specifically commits acts of violence through speech, of mockery and degradation and stuff like that. The problem I have with the Rhetorical Yona's approach is I'm not quite sensing the unity. Like I see he's trying to tie this together with the navon, but I feel like the second half of this is too general, that he doesn't censor himself. The fool just blabs on, and that's what my chavrus and I were trying to find. Is we were trying to find, we were saying that the idea is based on the way you relate to knowledge, that will dictate the way you speak about knowledge. So the chacham values all knowledge. He'll store it and he'll use it whenever it applies, knowing that it's going to be useful at some point. So that was treasuring knowledge. And the avil doesn't treasure knowledge. He just treasures what he views as that he can wield at the time, So if he can't wield it, he'll just throw it away. And if he has a piece of knowledge that he likes wielding, he'll just apply it indiscriminately,
Also, I was just gonna say, I don't know if this will help with clarification. And it might be exactly what you're saying, so I guess we'll find out. But would you say that because the avil doesn't have that knowledge stored up, that the destruction he's causing isn't even just that one piece of information that he's trying to put everywhere, but also that because he doesn't have anything stored up, he's just spewing whatever, not just whatever comes to him, but Yeah,
that is a point, right? In other words, the chacham, when he speaks, it's not only will he have particular. Okay, this is a broader point. Okay, this is the point I was forgetting. Thanks, Ricky. I wasn't saying it, but I meant to say it. So this is actually a point made by my chavrusa. So I get it clearly. So what Ken was saying was that not only will the chacham have particular pieces of knowledge that are useful, but he is in the habit of thinking carefully about everything he has, and he gets a very good sense of what knowledge is. So when he speaks, it's like his speech is being passed through a filter of knowledge, of like a thinker speaks with a different type of deliberateness than a fool does. You know, like I just heard a thing that someone was saying that he interviewed Ruth Bader Ginsburg like shortly before her death, and he said it's a weird experience he had because he realized he would ask a question and like she would pause for like 5 or 6 seconds before responding, and he thought like, is she going senile, like you know, and then he like asked someone else about it, and they said no, she's always done this, like even in her 20s and 30s, you know. And then this guy was saying, like, can you imagine a person who thinks before she speaks, you know? So like so that's like an extreme example of this. But the fool, not only will he lack the facts because he hasn't been accumulating a storehouse of facts, when he speaks, he'll be just, where will his speech come from? Is like Yona says, ha'ola al rucho, just from his emotions, from his like hunches, from his like superficial takes on things, you know? So it's not even drawing on any like reservoirs of anything, you know?
So how does he explain the krova? It's still, the krova is a little
yeah. So the krova, he just says is it's going to be many types of destruction, because you're going to say things that are, excuse me, that like you can reveal, let's say, sensitive information that you shouldn't reveal, and that's going to cause harm, you know. You're going to gossip, you know, and that's going to cause friction between people and fighting, and you're not even thinking about that. You're going to like reveal stuff that is not supposed to be revealed to people who are going to get because people are going to get in trouble, you know. You're going to say lies because you didn't bother to verify it. You're going to give bad advice because you don't think through the advice. So there's just like, there's so many types of destructive speech that you can say when you're not thinking carefully before you speak, that like there's just destruction all around, you know. There's like a radius of like there's hazard tape, you know, all around the fool because of everything he says. Yeah.
I mean meaning like he couldn't have just said it'll be a danger to everyone.
That is essentially what he's saying, but he's saying it's like Rabinu is emphasizing the multifaceted danger, and that's why it's like surrounding him at all times.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I offer a twist?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to completely switch the relationship of the two halves of the pasuk.
Okay, let me go.
In a way that you'll either think is cool or totally off the mark.
Okay, those are the best kind of twists. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so what if we say that there's two ways to relate to knowledge.
Yeah.
And depending on how you relate to knowledge, you're either going to be on a higher level or on a lower level, in a similar way to maybe how we talked about it last week. So, for example, if someone has knowledge and they exercise it correctly, then they could be, I don't know what the noun would be, but a person of knowledge, you know,
yeah,
like
funny thing, by the way, there is no term for that in Mishlei.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, which to me supports the notion that das is more often used as a generic term than as a technical term, but that's a separate thing. Yeah,
I hear that. I do hear that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So since there's no word, I'll just use navon. But if a person interacts with knowledge correctly, then they're a navon. But if a person interacts with knowledge incorrectly, then they're demoted to a wise person. Okay. Meaning, if you have the knowledge, you have the knowledge, right? You can't say that a person doesn't have the knowledge because they're not interacting with it correctly, right? So they still have that knowledge, but they're now just a wise person. Okay. And here, his point is that there's an implication, there's a reaction to which one you are. and that is the fool. Is if you're not going to use your knowledge correctly, if you're not going to share it at the right moments and the right times with the people around you, then you're just going to keep it all inside and treasure it for yourself, so to speak. Then people nearby are going to start exploding, like this fool who's, let's say, let's use like a really dumb example, like playing with electricity, and what he's doing is about to get him electrocuted.
Yeah.
If you hold that knowledge to yourself, then he's gonna explode in 3 seconds, kind of. So it's like, but on a more like, on a less like technical level, this applies to all ideas. If you're not willing to share and interact with your knowledge correctly with the people around you, then the people who don't have that knowledge are going to always be close to destruction.
So
I
what's
think
the danger?
the danger is if you don't have the knowledge to operate on, then they're going to get consequences.
Yeah, but wouldn't that just make you a Russia then? I mean, if you have the knowledge to save someone and you don't save him, that's just not a villain anymore. That's not a fool. That's like an actual evil person.
No, so okay, so
Not
that's
ideal, it's evil, yeah.
Go on.
so no, that's just with my poor example, but in reality, there's a concept which it's really the opposite of what we've been saying till now, that a wise person is cautious with what they say almost. So there's a concept that like, don't give advice unless you're asked. Like you don't want to be seen as a person who's gonna ruffle feathers. Like keep quiet, stay to yourself.
Yeah.
Like don't offer information that's not sought after. But that's not always necessarily the right thing to do. There are times when you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation where you have to be willing to ruffle some feathers, where you have to be able to speak the truth, and that will prevent serious harm and destruction to others.
But why is that foolish?
No, the fool is not the person we're talking about. The fool is the nearby people who are doing things without knowledge.
Oh, you mean meaning
here's where I lost you.
Okay.
Just one, maybe this is the part I feel like I'm missing. What is the mouth of the fool bringing destruction? Like, what's that?
Yeah, so I didn't address that directly, so it's a fair point to bring up. I don't think that's so hard to just wrap in by saying that foolish people are going to be, like it's not so uncommon to hear someone very confidently give someone bad advice or bad instructions, or, share something that's just wrong and false. And it might be tempting for someone who wants to be a nice, polite, wise, well-liked person to not say anything. But when you hear something that is patently false being shared and expressed towards someone else, then it might be that you have an obligation to say, like I don't know if you've ever heard someone claim that that this is like a Jewish idea, and like this is what Jews believe, and like in your head you're like, that is just not true, so it's like
once or twice.
yeah. So it's like you could just say nothing, and then this other person walks away with a totally false understanding of what Judaism or God is, but that's like destructive, so you could like risk being in an uncomfortable situation by saying like, that might not be, you don't have to be rude about it, but saying something could be the difference between destruction and not destruction.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my take on what you're saying. Okay, is I like all the particular ideas, but either I'm not understanding it correctly, or you're not explaining it clearly, or it's too complicated. Like that's, as a reading of the pasuk, it feels like really complicated, So like, again, I don't know if I'm not seeing the unity, or you're not explaining it, or you really are saying it perfectly and I'm understanding it perfectly. But if that's the case, it's too complicated. And
I'm gonna
there's
guess
too
the
many
problem's the fault's mine. So if you want, I can think a little more and see if I can.
Yeah, if
polish it
you
better.
I think it's a good time to end for tonight anyway. But like, I think if you come up with a more refined version of it, and want to let me know later on, then that would be good. And I think I lost at some point the connection between, like, I saw how it started off as connected to the last pasuk, but now I'm getting, like I found myself as I was listening to you saying, is he talking about this part of this pasuk or this part of this pasuk, or is he talking about the previous pasuk? Like I just couldn't see what was applying to what. So yeah. You're muted.
Sorry. Without trying to drag this on too long, I'll just try to clarify little points, and then I'll think more about it later. But I was talking, I was trying the similarity between this pasuk and last pasuk that I was trying to bring out was the relationship between a person and knowledge, and how they relate to the knowledge can define who they are or which category of person they are.
Yeah, that part I did like.
Yeah, and then the second half is just a result of how they relate to knowledge.
The second half, or the second pasuk?
The second half. Well, the second half of this pasuk is just talking about the results of how a person relates to knowledge in the first half.
And then I guess the other thing, which just the thing about also is like I don't remember what we said last week in all of the ideas, but the second half of last week's pasuk also, I want to see how that fits in if we are going to connect them. But I think there's a good place to stop for tonight. So at least I think Isaac's idea and Ariel's additions to it made that clear. The basic idea being that when you speak, then you have to. It's not enough to bear in mind the idea, but you have to remember the rhetorical triangle, right? The relationship between you, and the idea, you and the audience, and then the idea and the audience, and put yourself to the greatest extent possible in their shoes, intellectually and emotionally, to try to anticipate how are they going to take it and understand. And first of all, make sure that they're going to understand it, but also that they're going to relate to it properly, and that it won't be perceived by them in a way that leads to harm on their part. And don't be like the Evil who just like, says whatever comes to his mind. And even if you're saying chachma, like, or das, like we said, this is something that chachamim can fall into, like just not taking into account the people who they're talking to, or, and so this is this is practical communication advice, I guess, is the heading. Yeah,
thank you. If only we had this pasuk in high school.
I sense it wouldn't. Probably wouldn't have helped. Pesukim don't tend to. Pesukim involving self-control. There's a statement of Aristotle that says ethics. Hold on, let me find it. It's a good one. It's a machlokes between Aristotle and Shlomo HaMelech. He says.
I love how you casually say that, though.
Was that? Yeah. Oh man, he says. Okay, it's a great. I can't find it right now. Something like ethics should not be taught to the young, because the young are as if they are in a permanent state of intoxication. Something like that. Like that they lack self-control. And it might be I'm merging two quotes, but like they lack the self-control. And Shlomo Melech does feel like you teach ethics to the young, but I never really looked into that machlokas, but yeah.
That is so interesting. Like, we have to take up that machlokas.
Yeah. I gotta find where he says it first, and then we got.
He also became king when he was 12, so I mean, he was pretty young.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he had a good father though. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess that's it for tonight. And if anyone thinks of more ideas, and this is a standing offer, by the way. If anyone thinks of an idea, I mean, Ariel has done this, and this is what reminded me of it. If you think of another point to make or a clear idea, feel free to like WhatsApp it to me, and because I do try to think about it and review it afterwards, and refine it. So
you could create a Mishlei WhatsApp chat.
I could. I feel like I already have too many of those, So I'm trying to cut back.
Quick question though, is you just mentioned before the second half of last week's pasuk? Could you just remind me about that?
Yeah, it was. I actually just opened it up again. It was, and a rod for the back of the one who lacks a heart, or one who lacks a mind. And I remember one of the interpretations we had, because I remember your interpretation of the pasuk that your twist on the interpretation of the pasuk that I quoted of it's giving rebuke, and if you give rebuke like a navon, then you'll make it perceived like chachma, and if you give it like a fool, it will be perceived like a rod of the back. But I don't remember. I feel like we said another idea earlier. I don't remember. Alrighty. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Till next time.
Thank you.